Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me. This said information will be pertaining to the state of New York versus Robert Sylvester Kelly, better known as R. Kelly, R&B sensation, once was, now perhaps a fallen man. I will be bringing you two sources of information pertaining to the trial that started today in Brooklyn, New York. This is a federal case. One of the charges against Robert Kelly is racketeering and other said charges. And in the said indictment, the information is not pertaining to the 2008 trial, which took place in Chicago, Illinois, where Robert Kelly was charged with pornography. Uh, Jerhonda Pace is one of the first witnesses to testify in this said indictment. Thank you all for joining me. Everyday Shenanigans. WSJ is the first source. Wall Street Journal. R. Kelly trial opening statements delivered in federal racketeering prosecution. The R&B singer is charged with leading a criminal enterprise and using his entourage to recruit women and girls for sex. Hello, Soul Survivor. Thanks for joining me, sweetheart. The trial of singer R. Kelly kicked off Wednesday with opening statements from federal prosecutors and defense lawyers in a sprawling racketeering case that charges the R&B star with leading a criminal enterprise for decades and using his entourage to recruit women and underage girls for sex. A federal grand jury in Brooklyn indicted Mr. Kelly, whose legal name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, in July 2019, for allegedly participating in the sexual exploitation of children, kidnapping, and forced labor, as well as violations related to coercing and transporting women and girls to engage in illegal sexual activity. Mr. Kelly, 54 years old, has pleaded not guilty on all criminal charges. If convicted in New York, he faces 10 years to life in prison. He also has pending federal and state prosecutions in Illinois and Minnesota, where he has pleaded not guilty. Assistant U.S. Attorney Maria Cruz Melendez delivered the prosecution's opening Wednesday to a jury of 7 men and 5 women, laying out the inner workings of an alleged criminal enterprise with Mr. Kelly at its helm. This case is not about a celebrity who likes to party a lot, said Ms. Melendez. This case is about a predator, quote unquote. During the 45-minute opening, she accused the singer of using his fame and network to target, groom, and exploit young female fans, many of whom worship the singer of hits like I Believe I Can Fly and Bump and Grind. His success brought him assets, Ms. Melendez said, and Mr. Kelly relied on an inner circle of employees to facilitate and help cover up his crimes. Mr. Kelly also used his lawyer and accountant to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in hush payments to keep his conduct from seeing the light of day, said Ms. Melendez. Racketeering cases brought under the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act have historically been used to pursue gang and mafia members. To prove a continuing criminal enterprise, prosecutors must show 2 or more acts of racketeering activity that Mr. Kelly had an interest or participated in. The 9-count Brooklyn indictment alleges 14 racketeering acts that involve 6 women, identified in court papers as Jane Doe number 1 through 6, 3 of whom were underage at the time. Repeat, 3 of whom were underage at the time. On Wednesday, Mr. Kelly's defense lawyer said that RICO was crafted to go after leaders of large criminal enterprises like John Gotti, the head of a mob family, and that prosecutors were wading into uncharted legal territory. Interesting. The government will attempt to put a square peg into a round hole, said Mr. Kelly's attorney, Nicole Blank Becker. You will wonder, where's the proof? During her opening statement, Ms. Becker walked jurors through the women's allegations and called them consensual relationships. They knew exactly what they were getting into, she said. They are Monday morning quarterbacking. Well, sexual misconduct allegations have long loomed over Mr. Kelly. A jury acquitted him on child pornography charges in 2008. Prosecutors sought permission to call as witness several women whose accusations against Mr. Kelly haven't resulted in criminal charges in New York to establish the racketeering enterprise and the methods it allegedly used to control women and girls. Isolation, obtaining damaging information about Mr. Kelly's sexual partners, and frequently filming the sexual activity. Above all else, he demanded absolute obedience, said Ms. Melendez. Another anticipated prosecution witness is Mr. Kelly's former tour manager, who will testify under a grant of immunity about alleged robbery acts included in the racketeering charge, prosecutors said in the opening statements in court filings. In 1994, Mr. Kelly and his then tour manager paid $500 for fraudulent identification documents for the late singer Aaliyah, who was then 15 years old and allegedly pregnant with Mr. Kelly's child, prosecutors said. The counterfeit documents said Aaliyah was 18 and Mr. Kelly then 27. Used them to marry her so she could not be forced to testify against him, given the spousal privilege. Mr. Kelly had pleaded not guilty to the charge. Okay, that's the said information. That was a very short article. Wall Street Journal is the source. So opening statements had begun today in Brooklyn, New York. Information has come about in the said trial pertaining to his former tour manager who is giving testimony. He aided a fake ID for the late singer Aaliyah when she was 15 years of age, and Robert Kelly was 27. And so what I was wondering was, what was the ID for? To get married or for pending allegations down the road? Because I'm not really clear on the ID situation. I'm assuming the ID really was gotten so he could marry her, because naturally you have to have ID in order to marry in the United States, because you have to file for a marriage license. So you're going to have to prove who you are in order to get married. So therefore you need an ID. So naturally she would need an ID, and naturally she couldn't form an ID because she wasn't of age. So I would assume that was the original reason they got her a fake ID, was so she could marry Mr. Kelly. Now, allegations that she was pregnant. I do not know if that's true. If she was, that's even worse. One, you're having sex with a 15-year-old. Two, you're trying to marry a 15-year-old with fake ID. More crimes. Now you've impregnated a 15-year-old. Lord have mercy. So what happened to the baby? I'm dead. Lord have mercy. Wall Street Journal is that first set of information. And basically his lawyer said they wanted it. They knew what was going on. And she called it Monday. What she called it? Let me requote this woman here, what she said. Because she was not too nice in her commentary. Hold on a minute, honey. Hold on. Let the queen find it again. They are Monday morning quarterbacking. Wow. That's deep. Wall Street Journal is the source if you need verification for the said information. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. NewYorkTimes.com is the second source. Thank you so much. R. Kelly trial opens with an accuser steering testimony. A woman said Mr. Kelly sexually and physically abused her when she was 16, the first time one of the R&B stars' several accusers has ever taken a stand in a criminal case. If you need verification, this is New York Times. Let's see if I can get it up. Hold 1 second. I have to go search it again. Hold on. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you want to donate to the channel, $ began to 129 Cash App. Got 6 viewing. Slow day today. That's all right. I got more commentary. They won't stay out of the news, so therefore they will keep a queen busy. Thank you all so much for joining me. Jerhonda Pace was 16 years old when the R&B singer R. Kelly invited her to his home in the Chicago area, told her to strip off her clothes, and eventually had sex with her, she told a jury on Wednesday. This Pace, now 28, was the first of Mr. Kelly's accusers to testify in his trial in Brooklyn, offering an initial glimpse into the system of sexual and physical abuse that federal prosecutors say the once prolific entertainer commanded for more than 2 decades. This case is about a predator, Maria Cruz Melendez, an assistant U.S. attorney, told the jury during her opening statement in the long-awaited and closely watched federal trial. Mr. Kelly, she said, was a manipulator who used his fame, his popularity, and a network of people at his disposal to target, groom, and exploit young girls, boys, and women for his own sexual gratification. Prosecutors are seeking to convince the jury that Mr. Kelly, 54, and those in his orbit built and perpetuated a decades-long system of sexual abuse. underlined. The case centered on Mr. Kelly's interactions with 6 women and including Miss Pace, underlined, who was the first of Mr. Kelly's accusers to ever testify in a criminal trial. The other 5 women involved in the case include the singer Aaliyah, as most of you know who is deceased, whose brief marriage to Mr. Kelly at 15 years old was among the first revelations to fuel questions over his conduct. And 4 women referred to only by their first names or by pseudonyms at the trial, Stephanie, Sonia, and Zell, who are all expected to testify. Oh, Lord have mercy. Shut up, Satan. As well as Faith, who is not. They were between 16 and 22 when Mr. Kelly preyed upon them. Ms. Cruz Melendez said Aaliyah, whose full name was Aaliyah Dana Houghton, died in a plane crash in 2001. Ms. Pace, who had been a fan of the singer, said she told Mr. Kelly that she was 19. But on 2009 day, when the two had oral sex, she revealed her true age. I felt uncomfortable, she said. I felt like it wasn't right and I should tell him my age. But Mr. Kelly did not appear to care, she said. He asked me, what is that supposed to mean? And told me to tell everyone I was 19 and to act 21, she said. When Miss Pace told him that she was a virgin, he said, that's good, she recalled, adding that he told her he would train her how to please him sexually. Later, she said, he took my virginity. The singer, whose real name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, has staunchly denied all of the accusations against him. Mr. Kelly's defense team, in its opening statement, questioned the claims and challenged the credibility of Mr. Kelly's accusers. Nicole Blank Becker, one of Mr. Kelly's 4 lawyers, described his accusers as once enamored fans who each develop an agenda when faced with the prospect of media attention and financial gain. Ms. Blank Becker referred to Ms. Pace, known as Jane Doe No. 4 in court records, as a super fan and a groupie who was consumed by her obsession with the singer. You're going to hear not 1, not 2, not 3, but I can't even count that high how many untruths you're going to hear from Jane Doe No. 4, she said. Jane Doe No. 4's story is like a snowball. I met R. Kelly. Oh, I saw R. Kelly. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The lies that she tells about her and R. Kelly, you'll see them unfold, quote unquote. She warned jurors to question the accuser's testimony, suggesting that it would be filled with exaggerations, quote unquote. 2 of the women at the center of the trial appeared in the documentary series Surviving R. Kelly, and 2 have never spoken publicly about their allegations. 3 were underage when their encounters with Mr. Kelly began. That several are expected to testify marks a significant change from Mr. Kelly's only previous criminal trial in 2008 when he was acquitted of child pornography charges. The long-delayed trial has been highly anticipated since Mr. Kelly's sexual conduct came under fresh scrutiny during the height of the #MeToo movement. It follows several similar high-profile cases over accusations of sexual assault, including the trials of Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein and the comedian and actor Bill Cosby. But Mr. Kelly's trial also stands apart. In Mr. Weinstein's case, which touched off a national reckoning around sexual abuse, many of the women who came forward were actresses and models, and they were mostly white, as were many of those at the center of accusations in the most prominent cases across business, politics, media, and entertainment. The majority of Mr. Kelly's accusers are Black women. I do think it matters a lot that this is the first high-profile #MeToo era trial where the accusers, for the most part, aren't white women, says Deborah Turkheimer, a professor of law at Northwestern University and former assistant district attorney in Manhattan. If you take these kinds of accusers who have traditionally been most dismissed, most disregarded, most cast aside, and those women are able to be believed and have jurors care enough to convict, that matters, Ms. Turkheimer said. And that would send a powerful message. Hello, Tracy. During the trial, jurors will hear testimony from witnesses and evidence that accuses Mr. Kelly kidnapping, forced labor, failing to disclose his sexual transmitted disease to his sexual partners, and producing child pornography. But the jury that filed into the courtroom just after 10 a.m. Wednesday will be tasked with processing a much broader question that is central to the case: whether an informal criminal organization existed around and contributed to the crimes Mr. Kelly is accused of. Minutes before the jury entered the courtroom, U.S. District Judge Ann M. Donnelly, who was presiding over the case, ruled on a slew of motions. allowing prosecutors to offer evidence of sexual abuse dating back to 91. Wow, that's deep. Those allegations regard Mr. Kelly's brief marriage to singer Aaliyah. During her opening statement, Ms. Cruz Melendez portrayed the 1994 marriage as a last resort effort by Mr. Kelly to avoid legal prosecution. One night in 1994, while he was on tour and about to take to the stage, Ms. Cruz Melendez said one of Mr. Kelly's associates told him that Aaliyah believed she might have been pregnant. This was, of course, a huge problem for him. Ms. Cruz Melendez said if she was pregnant, that meant there would be questions. At the very top of that list of questions, who was the father of that baby? He and his associates flew to Chicago to meet Aaliyah late one night, she said, and got to work, quote unquote. He bribed government employee in Illinois to obtain a fake ID for her, and in a hotel suite, he married her, Ms. Cruz Melendez said. Hotel suite. So now we have to ask ourselves, who performed the marriage in a hotel suite? So much for getting married at the courthouse. Very interesting. Then she said he caught a flight and returned to finish his tour. Well, then that makes sense why he would marry in a courthouse, because then people would know he married Aaliyah. Somebody recognized the young lady as the singer. And then somebody would say, how can he marry her? She's underage. She's not 18. It's very wicked here. Very wicked. Okay, so it says he then caught a flight and returned to finish his tour. The judge also ruled Wednesday that the jury would hear the details of settlement agreements regarding accusations that Mr. Kelly knowingly gave two women herpes in 2001, as well as evidence that he gave the sexually transmitted disease to a minor in 1995. So this goes back to 95, him transmitting the disease. Another young singer identified in court as Zell met Mr. Kelly at one of his concerts when she was 17. Ms. Cruz Melendez said Mr. Kelly was 48 at the time. Throughout the concert, he paid extra attention to her, singing some of his songs directly to her. Zell was already a serious singer, performing in a choir and getting paid for gigs. She thought Mr. Kelly could help her career, Ms. Cruz Melendez said. So when his assistant gave her his number, she called him. He told her to swing by the hotel where he was staying. In a van outside, he instructed her to sit on his lap and give him a kiss, and then he invited her up to his room, Ms. Cruz Melendez said. I'm going to reread that because that's very interesting. He asked her to swing by his hotel. In a van, he instructed her to sit on his lap and give him a kiss. And then he invited her up to his hotel room, says Miss Melendez. Lord have mercy. She agreed to meet him there, hoping to sing for him. But before she could sing, the prosecutor recounted, he said he needed to relieve himself. Zell knew he meant sexually. He begged to have sex with her, eventually saying that if she agreed, he would take care of her for the rest of her life. After much persuasion, she submitted, and the prosecutor said eventually she got to sing for the defendant. Mr. Kelly, prosecutor said, promised her parents that he could help push her career, even telling her she'd be the next Aaliyah. Instead, Zell contracted herpes from the singer, the prosecutor said. By the time she was a senior in high school, Zell, who had first lied about her age, told Mr. Kelly that she was 17. Did he end it? No, the prosecutor told the jury. He suggested that she do her senior year remotely and live with him. Mr. Kelly soon became psychologically abusive, Ms. Cruz Melendez said. He told Zell to call him daddy and prohibited her from doing even small tasks without his authorization. When she disobeyed, he violently beat her, calling them chastisements, which for a period of time he doled out on a daily basis. Sometimes when she failed to obey him, the singer forced her to have sex with a man she never met. Other times, he locked her in a room for days. In another instance, Mr. Kelly ushered Faith, then 19, into a small room and ordered her to strip, Ms. Cruz Melendez said. She spotted a gun in the room and complied when Mr. Kelly ordered her to perform a sex act on him. Later, when she filed a lawsuit against the singer, his staff threatened to release compromising photos of her. Outside the courtroom on Wednesday morning, fans of Mr. Kelly had scribbled messages of support like Free R. Kelly and Honey Love, the name of one of his songs while he was in the R&B group Public Service Announcement. The trial may not be the final chapter in the decades-long trail of murmurs and accusations of criminal behavior by Mr. Kelly. He also faces a trial in Chicago on federal charges and additional states' sex crime charges in Illinois and Minnesota. Among those arriving at the courthouse on Wednesday were the parents of Mr. Kelly's ex-girlfriend, Jocelyn Savage. They were among a group who helped expose Mr. Kelly's interactions with women and encouraged others to speak out. Miss Savage, who was Mr. Kelly's girlfriend at the time of his arrest, had spoken up in the R&B singer's defense in an interview with Gayle King, 2019. But in an unverified post on the website Patreon later that year, she said that Mr. Kelly had been controlling and abusive during their relationship. Ms. Savage's role in the trial is not totally clear. She is currently listed as a potential witness for the defense. Wow, interesting. On Wednesday, her parents said they were hopeful about the trial and that they had sought for so long. It started a long time ago, and we have to finish it, Ms. Savage's father, Timothy Savage, said in an interview outside the courthouse. We want to make sure that we have justice for these victims. If you need verification for the information I just brought to you, the NewYorkTimes.com is the source. I got a few of you viewing. Thank you all so much for joining me. A bit winded, but that's just information about the New York Times. So I brought you commentary of opening statements where his attorney, female attorney, is saying these ladies were Monday back quarterbacking. They wanted this. They pursued him. Lied about their age. Jerhonda Pace is the first witness to testify. She was an underage child when R. Kelly met her. She's one of the females you will see in pictures standing outside the courtroom when he was going to trial in 2008 on charges of pornography. He was exonerated from those charges. And during this time, Mr. Kelly interacted with Jerhonda Pace as a minor, had sexual relations with her, and so forth and so on. And you can see her testimony pertaining to her relationship with R. Kelly in Surviving R. Kelly that has aired on Lifetime and other streaming devices. Also, we learned information has been brought forth pertaining to Aaliyah and he and his then tour manager getting false documents stating she was an adult, fake ID, which is a crime. He flew to the hotel to marry her because somebody came back and said she thought she was pregnant. He married her in the said hotel room, left, flew back out. What we have to ask ourselves, if she was 15, what the hell was she doing alone in that hotel room for him to be with her alone? You see, I always had a problem with this story pertaining to Aaliyah and the other young girls. Where were their parents? Where was Aaliyah's parents? Why is your child in a hotel room in the city by herself, unsupervised, with a grown-ass man? But yet, that ain't no big deal. Y'all don't want to say nothing about Aaliyah. Who don't talk about her? She's dead. Well, guess what? She's the start catalyst of the story to show a pattern. That's why the evidence has been introduced into court. She is the start of the pattern to show Robert fancied young girls under the age of 18. That is the spoken word. Whether you like it or not, you like R. Kelly or not, you like his music. That has nothing to do with knowing him and the charges and the crimes that he has been accused of. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm not here to argue with you. But Aaliyah is the start of showing the pattern of this man fancying sickly young girls. And he continued this throughout his life. Soliciting children, it is a crime. If you scratch all the other women who were grown, dated him, claiming he abused them, you can scratch them. But what about the children? These girls were children. Doesn't matter if they liked R. Kelly. Didn't matter if they wanted to have sex with him. They're kids. They are kids. They were kids. There's no such thing as she wanted it. That's the same thing a rapist says after he's raped a woman. She wanted it. Well, I didn't know she wanted it if you climbed through the window without her permission. You touched her, she told you no. You kept groping, she said no. And then you forcibly took it. It's all the same. No means no. And soliciting children is a crime. It's the bottom line. And as his older attorney said, some of the women are probably telling the truth, but what R. Kelly did to them is that a crime, such as mental and physical abuse. Really? You really want to go there? So physical abuse is a crime if indeed the person presses charges. But because you call me dirty names, I can't press charges for that. Lord have mercy. What a ride. This is the said information pertaining to the trial, federal trial, racketeering, and said charges against Robert Sylvester Kelly. And these accusers are African American. And in this said article, you will see a picture of Jocelyn Savage's mother, Jocelyn Savage, walking in with Miss Allred to the courtroom. She is one of the people who is attending the court proceedings. And as most of you know, there will be 2 overflow rooms outside of the courtroom housing reporters and said people. There is no filming inside of the courtroom because this is a federal trial. Only Mr. Kelly, his attorneys, the judge, the state prosecutors, witnesses testifying, and those pertaining to the court proceedings itself. Thank you all so much. Well, I'm going to say this. I don't speak of what I know about the trial and R. Kelly and who did what, who said what, because in the end, if you want to say the parents wanted money, then you now have to say that the parents knew that their child was having sex with R. Kelly. And I don't know if every parent knew that their child was having sex with R. Kelly, because when Jocelyn started out having sex with R. Kelly, they didn't even know she had dropped out of school. Her parents found out after the fact. She wasn't even attending college, allegedly. So I'm going to speak on their behalf in the beginning, let's say. They didn't even know where she was, let alone she had left the school, packed up, and had moved in with Robert. And if you're going to make the claim that every person he slept with underage, their parents knew, I don't know if I can rock with that. Because you're going to have to show a receipt that the parents knew the child was having sex with a grown man, aided their child to have sex with a grown man, solicited their child for sex with Robert Kelly, also asked for funding, gifts, yada, yada, yada. And the fact that Robert Kelly has paid several people off shows you he knew what he was doing was wrong, because why would you pay somebody off for having sex with their child? Think about what you're saying. You see, the truth needs no explanation. A grown man has no reason to solicit a child for sex. A grown man has no reason to ask someone to solicit a child for sex. And a grown man has no reason to be paying off bribes to children's parents so they can keep quiet and not bring forth charges against him. So that shows he willingly knew he was having sex with kids, so he bribed their parents. What? I'm trying to figure out how you're confused about that. And there will be testimony in the court of people who aided him in the bribes. So think about that. If you want to say that everything's a lie, somebody's getting ready to testify and throw their own self under the bus as aiding in the briberies and the extortions of money and paying off people to stay quiet, as not to prosecute Robert Kelly. So why would I lie on myself? And one of these people, which is a tour manager, he has been granted immunity to give his testimony in this said trial. It is a choice to stay with a person who is abusive, indeed. So these women who were actually grown, it was their choice to stay with him. But I cannot say verbatim what happened in the confines of the homes, apartments where they resided with R. Kelly. What he did, said, locking rooms, doors, no bathroom breaks, no food. I can't say because I wasn't there. But all I can say, once a person had an opportunity to vacate the premises where they resided with R. Kelly, the best thing was to do was to keep moving and stay gone and sever all ties with Robert Kelly. Let's put it like that. And for those who went back in, because there are allegations that some of the women flew in, flew out, and still made claims that he abused them. Well, that still was their choice. But I'm just going to go ahead and speak for the children. Doesn't matter that a young girl favored him, fancied him. It was wrong for him to participate sexually with a child, and it was wrong for him to use and ask others to send messages, phone numbers, go over and speak to the ladies, ask them to come to his room, car, which is so ever. It's all the same. And when I think back to a lady who brought forth testimony to, or her version to Tasha K's channel about an incident that took place, I believe, in Alabama somewhere, where she had lost her home and she was in a hotel with her children, and he offered to help her with her children. Once she went back to speak to him, or he saw her outside the hotel, however it went, he solicited her for sex. So what I'm trying to understand, why would you offer to help her and her kids, but then the next time you speak to her, you're asking her to perform oral sex on you? Is that the right thing to do? And although she told this story and threw her own self under the bus by repeating it, it still shows a pattern of who Robert Kelly is. He is addicted to sex. He has to have sex. It doesn't matter who it's with. Man, woman, child, boy. Girl, man, woman. He doesn't care. He doesn't even have a preference at this point. And I believe that's going to be proven in court. And I can't see how anybody could act like they want to help somebody who was destitute with their children, staying in a hotel. I can't remember if they said her apartment caught on fire, house caught on fire, however it goes. Why would you solicit her for sex? And actually, she performed whatever act. She also told what it was like with him sexually. And I believe it was very negative. We don't have to go into the details. But nonetheless, it shows a pattern that Robert Kelly doesn't care about anybody. He's a narcissist. He's a sociopath. He's a predator. He doesn't care about anybody. He doesn't care about himself. Because he doesn't even have a preference of who he's pursuing sexually. And that's his ruse to get you in. Oh, hi, come back to my room. Come back to the studio. Oh, you can sing. You can do this. But when he gets you there, it's not about your talent, whether you have it or not. That's not why he had you come there. It was to get close to you, to put a bid in for sex. Bottom line. And it didn't matter if you were a child or if you were an adult. The worst part of the story is that he solicited children. Now, grown-ups, they were entitled to have sex with Robert if they wanted to because they're grown. The fact that some of them stayed around him knowing that he still abused them, that would be up for interpretation. If indeed he locked people in rooms, had people watching the house and apartments where the ladies couldn't get out, that means you're crazy to stand there and allow Robert to involve you in holding somebody in a room or not letting somebody out of a room, or you know he's not feeding the ladies or whatever was going on. Couldn't use the bathroom, couldn't make a phone call. However it went, truth or not, why would you as an outside person be involved in that? See, that doesn't make any sense. See, the predator has a reason for why he or she does what they do, but why are you as an outsider participating? For the money? And now we find out, allegedly, he doesn't have any money. He can't pay for his transcripts. State wants him to pay. And obviously, they think he has money. So the ultimate question is this, because I meant to say this in my beginning footage of this trial. How are you lawyers getting paid if Robert doesn't have any money? How are you paying the due bill for showing up in trial, travel expenses, food, if you're indeed not even from New York, hotel expenses, drawing up paperwork, all that costs. Any type of private detective work, that costs. It's crazy. Well, as he has said, and I brought you commentary, Robert doesn't even think there's anything wrong with infecting the ladies with herpes. He's made that clear. He doesn't think it's all that bad, but I think he should know better. He knows damn well that the outbreaks are bad, and he should know that they're going to be painful. But that's the wording of a narcissist. He too is infected, and he doesn't even care that the outbreaks will be painful for him. So that should tell you his mindset. He doesn't care. He has never cared. A child who was wounded by adults sexually to only grow up to become an abuser himself. And that was his choice, because he could have gotten help. He could have reached out and told somebody, I'm having feelings that I don't like. He should have finished school. He should have learned how to read and write. So all that time he had spent in the studios allegedly writing music but can't read and write, which makes no sense. Bedding people, soliciting people, using people to pick up more people to use and manipulate. He could have gotten an education and got some mental help for his deviances, but he chose not to. And so now he's a 54-year-old man, broke down mentally, physically, and financially, standing trial for his life, and has 2 other states with pending charges. What type of life is that? What type of life is that? So whether you believe the allegations from these people, you're entitled to your opinion, but nobody can dispute that the man fancies kids and has a high sex drive. I don't even think that's even a question at this point. And even to this day, there will be some women and men who would break their neck, ankle, to be in the company of Robert Kelly. Why, I do not know. Knowing that, yes, he has a filthy taste for sex, sexual acts, abuse, mental, physical abuse, and transmitting diseases. He doesn't care. Somebody would sell their soul to the devil to just get a taste of R. Kelly. And that shows you how sick the world is. And this is why I keep telling you all, you don't know people. You think you know people, but you don't. And I think a lot of people knew about Robert's fascination with children and sex, bisexuality, that they didn't say anything. They didn't care. And the parents of some of the children who knew their children were not coming home or staying with them, they should be liable as poor parents. Because at some point, Jerhonda Pace's mother didn't give a damn. She made that clear in one of the commentaries on Surviving R. Kelly. Her mother didn't care about what she was doing, where she was going. So her child could have ended up dead somewhere, whether it was with R. Kelly or not. You don't care that your child's coming home. You don't care if your child's going to school. You don't care if they're making good grades or not. Why not? That's your child. So you see, a lot of this goes deeper than just allegations against Robert Kelly. There's possibly some parents in these storylines that didn't care about their children, their girl children. They didn't care to ask where their children were all day, why you didn't come home in a decent hour after school. Those are questions a decent parent would ask. But like I said, I don't have proof that every girl he slept with underage and boy, that their parents were in cahoots with selling their child to Robert Kelly. Because perhaps some of the parents didn't even know where their children were. And many people don't know where their children are after school. They have no idea what their kids are into and what they're doing. And I think we all know this with what's going on in America with the youth. You want to donate to the channel? $ again to 129 Cash App. I want to thank you all for joining me. This is the sad information coming out of Brooklyn, New York. The trial against Robert Kelly has commenced, and he has other charges in the state of Illinois and Minnesota. There will be several people testifying against Robert Kelly in this trial. If you need to double back to the beginning of this video, I give the said information. His tour manager, ex-tour manager, will be somebody testifying against him. Jerhonda Pace is the first to have testified today against Robert Kelly. And other accusers will be taking the stand and giving their testimony pertaining to their relationship with Robert Kelly. This is a sad day, indeed. But as I state, Robert chose this road because he didn't have to live like this. Whether he likes sex or not, or like different types of sex, a whole lot of sex, doesn't really matter. Everybody's grown. I don't care about somebody liking sex. I don't care if somebody has a overbite for sex. It's what you're doing while you're having the sex. It's how you're treating people while you're having the sex. And it's what you're doing to children in seeking sex. That's where the problem lies. But a man wants to go out here and sleep with everything that walks, whether it's a guy or a lady, that's his business. He wants to have a menage a trois, 6 people in the bed, swingers, that's his business. That's her business. My problem is seeking children for sex, using women for sex, being abusive to the women, being abusive to the women sexually, bringing in other parties without their permission, forcing them to have sex with other people. And also, one thing I did mention is the videotaping. Hello, everybody. He also videotaped his sexual interludes with women, possibly the men too. So see, that's another problem because most states have laws against you being filmed without your permission. Who has the right to film you while you're engaging in sex with them? How do you think that's right? It ain't. Because you don't want to wake up one day and see people snickering about you on social media or somewhere. Somebody be like, oh, hey, I need to holler at you. There's a tape running around with you in it. And you're like, excuse me? Yeah, there's a tape running around with you having sex with Pookie. R. Kelly. Now, imagine that. Yeah, see, that's real nasty. For those of you still rocking with R. Kelly. He liked to tape his sexual escapades. And no one has the right to tape you without your permission. And frankly, I don't advise you giving someone permission to tape you having sex. Now, if that's how you rock, that is your preference. But you can best believe it will probably get in the wrong hands and you will regret ever being taped sexually. And that's what happened with the case in 2008. Because on that tape, Robert was engaged in sexual activity with quite a few women. And I'm talking about different sizes, race, because I believe one of them was Korean. So he didn't care. And that same tape had the sex with the 14-year-old girl. And in that tape, you can see she was visually a child. And I don't have to go into the description. I think you know what a girl child looks like that is not fully developed. That's the set information. Hello, everybody. Hi, Ray. Thank you so much. Well, yeah, voyeurism is because, one, when you talk about peeping through windows, car doors, under bathroom stalls, poking holes in walls to look at people, hell yeah, that's against the law. Because you're doing something that you don't got no business, and you didn't inform that person that you're watching them, looking at them, peeping through their window, over their fence, however it goes. It's wrong. And it's sickening. So that's why I don't understand why people can't understand that the crimes he has exacted, they're criminal. You don't want somebody taping you, but you want to rock with a man because he can sing well. He takes somebody without their permission. He sought kids for sex. It's wrong. And it doesn't matter if some of these kids' parents found out, asked them for money, still doesn't matter. What the hell does that have to do with him soliciting the child? Because you got to think, had you not solicited the child, and let's just say for the record, some of their parents did find out and then double back and blackmailed R. Kelly, it still shows that he was having sex with a child. What are you missing about that? That's wrong, man. I want to thank you all for joining me. God bless all of you. I don't know if I'll come back on with another live, but I'm just trying to get all my updated stories out there to the public because there's some other, I might have a few more stories I need to gather together. But I want to thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you for all my new subscribers. The Queen is approaching 8,000 subscribers. You all have put a Queen over the top in just 1 month. And I want to thank you for your kindness, compliments, watching the content, sharing the content. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much. God bless all of you. Yes, if you need to go back to the beginning of this live to get the verifications of the sources, please tune in to the beginning of the video. There you will see the sources pertaining to the information that I've brought you. Jerhonda Pace has testified. That is by the New York Times. And so it's deep. Trying to see which is the other one I brought forth. I have to go back and look. Hold on 1 second. In case some of you might want to double back for yourselves. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, J Money. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, Wall Street Journal. It's the first information I brought pertaining to the opening statements by the state and by Robert Kelly's attorney. Thank you all so much. You all been good to a queen. I want to thank you all. And it's just a lot of craziness going on. But let me throw this out there in this video for those of you following. As most of you know, there was a alleged shooting last week at a Hawkins County high school. Well, I just learned in my notifications that that was a call that came from out of state. So I don't know what was going on with that. Why somebody would call in a fake shooting at that high school in Segowinsville, Tennessee. But I think that was really foul and rank. And there was an emergency that took place that morning at the school, but it didn't have anything to do with the shooting. So I don't know if the emergency is linked into the fraudulent phone call, but I think it's pathetic that some person, whether they were grown or a child, would call in a fake shooting at a high school, get everybody riled up, get all these, response teams to come to the school and have people running around like rats scurrying in the school, outside the school. And naturally, parents will get wind of it. They're worried about their children. The community's worried. This is so sad and pathetic. And I hope they find out who made the phone call, because that is just foul to do that. And I'm thankful that nobody was harmed at the school. But you see, we have a lot of sick people out here, and you just can't put anything past people. The people are just not well. They're not mentally stable. But I just wanted to throw that out there about the Hawkins County high school incident last week. It was a fake call, and it did come out of state. I did get verification for that this evening in my notifications. I want to thank you all for joining me. Stay safe. See something, say something. Mind the children. When I get more information pertaining to Robert Kelly, I will bring it to you. Naturally, every day there was going to be something, because this is a trial that's expected to last 1 month. So naturally, I will have a video every day of the week pertaining to Robert Kelly and the trial, the state of New York versus Robert Kelly. And I want to ask you, do you think it's a conspiracy? That was a video I was going to make on its own. Some are speculating that it's a conspiracy to bring down Robert Kelly, that these are all false allegations, lies. What is truth? Lies, truth, conspiracy, or a little bit of everything. Is this a conspiracy to take down Robert Kelly? And if so, who is the they that's trying to take him down? Or is it just payback for some way back? The queen can get jiggy now. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.